I'm just going to read either a short story or a poem. We'll probably find out which. Which perhaps has some formal connections to some of the works on display. Stay tuned to find out. What happened last episode? Do you remember the gargle of rainwater down drain pipes? What about the smell of blood dried into the hearthrug left there from when the cat gave birth? How can you recall that when TV doesn't transmit smell? Who could resist the upcoming barrage of questions that may or may not be resolved by the series finale? What secrets will this week's hour of drama and mystery unearth from the mud? If you could join our cast of eccentrics at Sir Basil's stately home, whom would you shadow? Which of them would you track to ensure they still exist when they're out of shot? Do their consciousnesses skip the week between episodes, or do they remain awake in a limbo of white noise? How far might one go to escape plunging back to that void when the programme ends? Where on the mansion's grounds could one hide from that fate? Whose footprints appeared overnight in the knot garden? Why are the prints of the left foot 6 feet further apart from each other than those of the right? If the bathroom window was left open at 47 degrees, at what angle should a rifle have been fired for a shot from the tool shed to pass through that gap? Which of the guests at that moment were not in the group that Sir Basil was giving an early morning tour of the ice house? Why do the locals keep on electing him as their Member of Parliament, given his well-known enthusiasm for wrestling them to the ground at constituency circles? Since Priyanka was at the ice house, how was she seen at the same time waiting outside a newsagent's shop 16 miles away? Why, when the shop opened, did she immediately buy the entire stock of Fly Fisher's Gazette? What was that shape moving in the pool at the bottom of the ice house? How could Imran be the sole person who noticed it? Is there a connection to his memories of that day when the sewers of Basingstoke overflowed? What insect is represented by the fishing fly worn on his lapel? Whose car has been hidden in a bivouac of branches near the top of the driveway? Who told Abigail about this gathering in breach of Sir Basil's instructions? How can she make a living as a freelance chiropodist in an isolated village of just 13 residents? What happened to everyone in the village's 98 uninhabited crofts? Does Abigail know the meaning of the Gaelic slogan printed on her t-shirt? If so, why would she wear it? What did she and Yemi discuss in the snug of the pub last night? Why did Sir Basil invite Yemi, a rookie reporter at a local paper in Lagos, to follow him on his election campaign? Which previous occupant engraved a diagram of a blast furnace on the mirror in Yemi's room? How could a furnace work if its fuel were lumps of ice? Why does Imran refuse the suite offered by Sir Basil, instead sleeping in a tent on the croquet lawn? What creature is Edith keeping in that matchbox, and how did she train it to tap messages in Morse code? Who is the housekeeper whose movements are heard and whose work is infallibly perfect, but whom no one sees? Why should the blooded hearthrug be the one thing in the house left uncleaned? Why does the groundskeeper converse in shouts from 30 paces and flee whenever guests draw closer? When Priyanka sneaks up on him in the blackthorn grove, what does she notice that makes her flee in turn? What leads to Imran waking up with his left arm trapped in a block of cement? When the block is chiselled off, what will be found grasped in that hand? How does Edith know of the fresco hidden behind wallpaper in the drawing room? Who built the stone archway that stands by itself in the woods? What happens when Abigail walks back and forth through it 9 times with her eyes closed? Why did the sitter for the portrait in the fresco pose with their back to the artist? How can Sir Basil justify voting to invade Patagonia? Why does Abigail press her ear to the bathtub plug hole as though listening for a whisper? Why did Imran cease replying to Edith's emails? What is signified by the arrhythmic tapping from behind the ventilation grill in his room? Why has the vainglorious Viking, a professional wrestler whose catchphrase is "I'm going berserk," been left cast to play Sir Basil in a film about the invasion of Patagonia? What have the foxes been digging for in the wild garlic patch? What was that shiny object that Priyanka saw a squirrel carrying into rhododendrons? Who buried the equestrian statue upside down with just its hooves poking out of the soil? What is the meaning of the symbol formed by the knot garden afterwards grown on the site? When should one visit to best appreciate the flowering colours that make the symbol evident? Is it coincidence that the general election is held on that day? How does a shop window mannequin end up as this area's Member of Parliament? To whom will Sir Basil turn for consolation when he hears the news? What will the mannequin wear to his investiture ceremony? What is the answer to 6 down in the crossword in this month's Fly Fisher's Gazette? And why does the word send Yemi into catatonic reverie? What is the best dip to serve with fried squirrels on sticks? Whose are the toes poking out from below the curtain in the drawing room? How did Priyanka's engagement ring, stolen from her in Australia 5 years ago, come to be in her dresser drawer at Sir Basil's home? Why is the password for her email account the same as Yemi's? Why does Edith laugh when she hears that the pub has burned down? Where does the tunnel from the pub's cellar lead? What has become of the padlock from the icehouse door? Who is the stranger who waits in the carp pond with no memory of their identity? Can Imran forgive Abigail for what she did to the porcelain platypus? What does Priyanka dream of that makes her recite traffic laws in her sleep? Who left a message on Yemi's phone demanding that he visit the abandoned chapel late at night? What happens to those who touch the altar there without first uttering its God's name? Why does your TV signal keep on glitching? Why does it happen each time Yemi tries to speak? Where are the kidnappers taking him? What happened to Imran after he escaped the siege of Lower Sydenham? Can Abigail get a refund if she sends her new rifle back to the retailer unused and still in its box? Who crossed out every word of Norman French origin from the books in Sir Basil's library? According to Rutledge's Pharmacopoeia, what ills can be treated with the poultice of wild garlic leaves grown on a haberdasher's grave? How does it feel to have a blackthorn shrub take root in one's inner ear? What happened to the blue mug that Sir Basil kept as a memento of his late uncle? How could a 3rd century papyrus, recently dug up from the Sinai desert, bear a translation into Aramaic of lyrics from Priyanka's first hit single? Why does the amnesiac stranger only speak in words of Old English origin? Could a gun even fire bullets made of ice? What is causing faux squirrels and foxes to fall out in clumps? Why did Sir Basil's ancestors choose as their coat of arms a mayfly rampant on a field azure? Who left the vainglorious Viking bound and gagged in the linen closet? What theories will you post online to explain all this? How can you tell whether any particular scene is a flashback, a dream sequence, or a vision of the future? If you stay up watching TV on St. Agnes' Eve and at midnight change the channel to the one whose number matches your age, will it show your true love's face? What does it mean if the channel is screening a documentary on crustaceans who dwell beneath the Antarctic ice sheet? How could you prove your love for them? What is the purpose of the ceremony performed by robed figures round the foot of your local TV transmitter? Why are all Britain's grey squirrels migrating to a nondescript field in Northamptonshire? What happens when the mound of squirrels reaches critical mass? Are you sure this voice is asking the right questions? What's the point of nihilism? What happens if you photocopy a mirror? Stay tuned to find yourself questioning whether you want answers. Stay tuned to find meaning in the fuzz of pixels morphing across your sight. Stay tuned to find out which side of the TV screen is your home.